Pacific vibes, we bring the heat. AI agents can't be beat. AI agents hour, let's go. News and guests, the big show. Solving problems, we do it live. Stay informed, it's a vibe. Building agents that work for you. Making moves, we see it through. Every week, a brand new show. Tag along and watch your knowledge grow. AI agents hour, let's go. News and guests, the big show. Answering questions, we arrive. Every Monday, come alive. We want reviews, but only if it's a 5. We share the drama, we got the drive. Stay in the loop, it's the place to be. Shane and I'll be setting you free. Tune in Mondays, make your day. From the news to the problem solved. AI world, get
Every week in AI, something insane happens.
And there's so much drama. Every Monday, we break it down live.
We do the news, we bring on guests, building in the space.
And we go deep into the stuff that actually matters.
Agents Hour, every Monday, noon Pacific.
Follow. Don't miss it. Peace.
This is Agents Hour with Shane Thomas and Avi Iyer.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Agents Hour. It's Monday. It's right around noon Pacific time. We're excited to be here. There's been a little bit of news this past week since we last met. What do you think, dude?
It's been a lot of news, dude.
So
a lot of drama.
We got some drama. We got some Game of Thrones action happening like we always do. So we're going to be talking about that, of course. Why wouldn't we? We don't have any guests today, so we're going to focus. We thought the news was so big, we wanted to just focus on that. But before we do, thank you. If this is your first time watching, make sure you go to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, give us a rating and review. We like those 5-star reviews. If you don't want to give us a 5-star, that's okay. You can find something else to do. But if you like us, we do appreciate those 5-star reviews. And we are 2 of the co-founders of Mastra, and we've been shipping some stuff and had some things we want to talk about. So maybe we'll start there, talk a little bit about Mastra quickly, and then we'll jump right into the news.
Yeah, so it was a big weekend for the company. It was a culmination of a lot of work. Let me share a couple things. So first, let's show Mastra just hit 25K stars on GitHub. When we first started the company, we were definitely driven about how many stars we wanted to hit. I remember early on in the show, we'd be like going for 10K or 5K or whatever the K was. But yeah, we finally hit 25K. And that's awesome. Now the next goal is 50. So that's cool. Coupling that with something else that's interesting. Today, we announced this post where we are excited to announce that you can use Claude Code SDK, Cursor SDK, and Codex or OpenAI SDK agents in Mastra. These can be used as either first-class citizens in Mastra. You can create these SDK agents and pass them into the Mastra class and interact with them in Studio. You can see traces and costs usage for them. You can also use them as sub-agents. And coupling this with 2 weeks ago, we released ACP support. So now we have the first-class SDK support, as well as ACP support, which is bring your CLI agents from using ACP, the Hermeses, the open codes, or whatever. And so that's awesome. Pretty big for us. We're kind of a meta harness, as people like to say, or we're defining the term. And then lastly, a big milestone we hit over the weekend. Started from the bottom, now we here, and that's really because we started getting to 1 million weekly downloads. We had a bet internally when we would hit this, and pretty much everybody was wrong. It was a lot later than we thought because of Memorial Day and things like that. But we finally hit it, and it's such a cool milestone. So very proud of everybody. I'm proud of the community. And all three of these releases or these three announcements we're talking about, are just big milestones for Mastra, each in their own unique way. So we wanted to share that with you before we got the show started. Thanks for being here.
Yeah, really appreciative of the community. I think that's kind of the takeaway. Just people like Mastra, the support of people that are building with Mastra, and the bug reports, the issues, the PRs sometimes, like that's awesome. We wouldn't be here without a lot of people liking the stuff that we're building. And so we're really appreciative of that. And, it allows us to also do fun things like this show, which is great because we do like talking about this stuff. This is very interesting to us. For those of you that watch it, I imagine you're interested in all the things that are going on in the space as well. So appreciate you being here. And with that, why don't we do it? Why don't we jump right into the news?
Let's do it.
All right. So before I share my screen, I've been testing out this new agent. So for those of you that have been watching for a while, you know that, we basically automate the slides that we show every week. And so I've been testing this new agent. And so it's going to be a little bumpy this week, but it's getting really close to being kind of on autopilot, which is what I'm aiming for. The way it works is we have some Slack channels that a lot of the team post interesting news articles and mentions. And so that's how a lot of this stuff is sourced. And we have an agent now that just is built on Mastra that kind of just keeps track of that channel and builds these slides automatically, takes the screenshots, does the whole thing. So we should probably open source this at some point, and maybe other folks would like it. But if there's a few small little hiccups today, it's because I've been experimenting with some new stuff. But here we go. A little preview of the show. And this is the big news. The headline of the week is that, Fable launched last week. We didn't even have a chance to talk about it on the show.
Yeah.
And then it has subsequently been removed. So for those of you that had a couple days, I'm curious if you're in the chat, what was your impression? Because Avi and I will talk about ours here in just a second, but queue up what you thought if you did get the chance to play with it for a while. So last week, June 9th, Claude announced introducing Claude Fable 5, a Mythos class model that we've made safe for general use. Quote unquote safe. We'll see if how
quote
safe.
unquote safe.
Its capabilities exceed those of any model we've ever made generally available. And then there's all kinds of, the next day and a half was just posts like this. So this is just one example, but I saw dozens of them. And I'm sure you did as well if you're looking around on X or any other place where they're talking about AI. And it's things like this. Holy shit, Claude Fable 5 just finished Pokemon Fire Red with vision alone. Raw screenshots only, no map, no nav, no hidden game state. Older Claude needed a helper harness. So I was basically able to finish this game, and you can watch the video. It shows, Fable 5 going through it. And then, some people said things like this, pointed at something that actually matters, not playing an old game. But I thought that was kind of funny because there's a lot of just, it can do this thing, which maybe is valuable, maybe it's not. But like one-shotting a Minecraft, game, it's like we're very good though at one-shotting tasks that Opus maybe did okay at, but Fable seemed to do even quite a bit better. But then there was a lot of things that started to come out. If you started reading a little bit deeper and you kind of read the the terms of what you're actually like getting into. One is that it was only going to be included in plans until June 22nd, after which you'd have to pay for API pricing. And it was, I think, twice the price of Opus 4.8 or something similar
Yep,
to that.
3x, I think.
Yeah, 3x. Yeah, much more expensive. And this caused a lot of people to lose their collective minds, which, I was kind of pretty upset as well, because of course they're free to do whatever they want with their plans, but it's almost like they were, it's almost like a drug dealer that wants to give you a taste of it, right? Like,
Yeah.
you've seen the shows like, I'll give you a taste for free, and then I know you're going to want to keep coming back, and you're going to pay me this new higher rate because you're hooked on it. So that's kind of what it felt like, is that there was this, they're kind of like going to pull the rug out from under you, and they were giving you a timeline of when you'd have it to get hooked on it before they were going to make you pay a lot more. I don't know. What do you think?
I think, well, I mean, there was so much hype after the release. And it's essentially, I think a lot of people were just building things that have already existed. So pointing at things that did not matter. I saw Mario Kart games and, Minecraft, and I mean, they're all fun things. Even our friends that are using it we're building just personal things that are, I guess, personal software things. A lot of game dev is what I saw. And also, I realized that if you don't care about money, like a lot of these people don't, then it didn't matter, right? Because the company is going to pay for it anyway. You're on enterprise plan, the company is going to pay for it, or you're on your max plan today, and eventually you'll have to pay for it. So no one really considered what this cost was. They weren't really thinking about it at all.
Yeah, I mean, if you were on enterprise plans, the way I think it works with Anthropic is you have to pay for API usage, right?
Correct.
And so
Yeah.
I know we had at least one friend who had spent over $1,000 in a day
$1,000 a day.
in Fable usage, right? He didn't have to pay it, right? Like the company paid it. But if you're on a big enough company where you need to be an enterprise plan, you're paying for API usage already. So that's just an indicator of what the average people on max plans would maybe have to pay if you're really using it, which is not affordable for almost anybody, right?
Yeah, and if you had to pay that, what would you be doing with it? You're not going to go rebuild games that already exist. You're going to probably
Exactly.
point it at something that matters.
It better be a very high value task. You're gonna actually have to
Yeah.
look at it afterwards and say, was it worth that $1,000 for that PR?
Yeah, someone I know was pointing Fable at a code review. They measured what the code review would have cost. It'd be $50. So would you pay $50 for a single code review? I mean, they're charging $25 already, so I guess $50 is even more expensive than Anthropic code review.
Yeah, that's wild. Other things that kind of came out around this time is that even if you were an enterprise plan, they were going to store your prompts for up to 30 days for basically creating a profile around you and ensuring that you're getting served the right model. One of the things they did right away, which I only recently found out about, is that they would actually, if you asked for certain types of tasks, they would fall you back to Opus, but not tell you, and they'd charge you the Fable price. So if you asked anything on like biology, even if it was like pretty just obscure, like you're not doing anything bad, they could fall you back to a model. And then eventually there's enough pushback where they said they'll make it more visible, so it'll tell you when it's falling back to Opus. The goal being it's part of their guardrails. They don't want you to do anything nefarious with it. But there was no visibility into that they were actually giving you the nerfed model, or nerfed being falling back to a lower class model, charging the same price. We had people then, once it started showing, report that even asking it to build Mastra workflows was falling back to the Opus model. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe it's because anything that's like AI related could be considered like distillation, trying to like distill the
Yeah.
model. But even something as simple as just trying to build a Mastra workflow was falling back to Opus in certain situations. I'm not saying in all. I just know that we heard reports from users that it was happening. So it's almost like they were telling you which model, what you could do with it, and they're severely limiting, to try to guardrail it.
Yeah, you couldn't ask about health science. Obviously, you couldn't ask it to write ransomware. I tried, and several other topics. What happened though? This significantly changed the agent loop for a lot of people because before you're waiting for the LLM request to say it's done, but there's a new status now called content filter, which is say the model says that hey, I can't produce this because the content filter tells me not to. And now you have these new metadatas in the response that say I stopped because of these specific details. And then you have to wire up your fallback audit like not it's not automatic fallbacks on the API. You have to say, okay, well, in these cases I'm going to fall back to 4.8 or whatever. And then you have to then, if you're thinking about from an agent framework perspective, you need to then identify that you're using 4.8, not Fable, for all these fallback cases. Um, I don't
Yeah.
think I had a great experience with Fable. I actually think it's a piece of shit, but
Okay.
that
Yeah.
is my perspective
Yeah, I
for
mean, I
sure.
think Claude Code and Claude would just do it automatically, right? But of
Yeah,
course, if you're building the framework around it, we had to do those fallbacks, and so we
yeah,
had to handle it. Um, I guess let's talk about experience. Yeah, let's talk about our experience with it. I had a reasonably favorable experience. I thought it was pretty good. It did 2 shot. It was like 1.5 shot. I had to like steer it a little bit, but it fixed a bug that I know Opus didn't fix. It wasn't something that was pressing. It popped up again. Last time Opus tried to do like a really crappy workaround and it kind of worked, but the kind of root cause showed up again in something I was building. It was this weird PMPM dependency hell issue on my local environment. It was able to like look through my computer system. It fixed it. It basically one-shotted it, or it identified it in one shot, and then I told it to fix it. It fixed it. So that was a great experience. The rest of it was pretty good. I didn't notice a significant difference for the stuff that I was doing besides that one case, besides the fact that it felt a lot slower.
yeah.
So I was waiting a lot longer. So I had to have, you know, either more loops running or I was doing other stuff at the same time because it just took quite a bit longer to get through the tasks.
Yeah. I had the same experience. It was very slow, both in our own harness as well as in Claude Code. I pointed it at something that matters, and I don't think it was that great. A bunch of our peers were saying, "Oh, are you prompting it correctly?" So I read that fucking guide about how to prompt it. I did exactly what it says. And I just don't think that for the time value of sitting in my seat to where I need to go on a given day, I'm not trying to sit there. Like, I'm also smart myself. Don't necessarily need this thing to do all the work for me. Unfortunately, I didn't go build a game or whatever, or I didn't rebuild GitHub from scratch. Maybe I should have done that so I can got super pilled on it. But no one I talked to has actually done real work with this thing. Um, so I don't know. Maybe I missed out and now it's gone.
So, this is just sharing. There was a system prompt leak. How accurate it was, I haven't read through the whole thing, but it does tell you, a little bit of it tried to distill the system prompt out of there. As often happens with all these models, someone figures out a way to uh, get access to it, get it to tell, display what it is. This is just a funny one where it's like Dario deciding which prompts are allowed to use the model, which ones aren't. So it's kind of a lot of people were upset thinking that like this is especially when they're also then going to remove it being available on the subscription plan, plus deciding which prompts are allowed to go through it. It feels very much like Dario just making the decisions for all of us on what we can use. That made a lot of people upset. It also started to strengthen people's arguments around open source models and open weight models, which have been gaining some momentum. And then this happens. So Anthropic has announced, this was on June 12th, the US government, citing national security authorities, has issued an export control directive to suspend all access to Fable 5 and Mythos 5 by any foreign national, whether inside or outside the United States, including foreign national Anthropic employees. And
Including
so,
Andre Karpathy
yeah,
and every
exactly.
other foreigner that they hired.
But what that basically meant is there's no way for them to discern that you are in fact U.S. citizen or not. And so they basically had the effect of they had to pull it for everybody, which is why you don't have access to it today.
Yeah.
Is they had to pull access to everyone. I do imagine they're going to fix this, right? But it might still only be available if you're a U.S. citizen, which again goes back to, there's a lot of people that want to ship. So we have a lot of people at Mastra that are shipping stuff, and they're not going to have access to the best model now potentially because of this. So let's talk a little bit about, what happened. Here's a little bit more information. We started to get we still don't know the full story, but we started to get hints of what maybe went down. And so we'll try to piece it together as best we can, but know that there's probably a lot more that's going to come out over the next few days.
Pretty much there was a snitch. Let's just start with there,
Yeah.
As most things start with a snitch.
Yeah. So, and apparently the US government gave Anthropic 90 minutes to shut down Fable and Mythos. So Amazon and others. So the Amazon CEO had apparently called the government and said that they were able to get it to go outside of its guardrails in their testing and able to get it to go around its kind of predetermined guardrails. And so they thought there was a severe threat, and the government called Anthropic, said, hey, can you fix this? Anthropic said either no or not on that timeline or something. Apparently, there's two sides to this story. On the one side, it said that the White House was trying to work with Anthropic, and Anthropic just didn't want to play ball. On the other side, Anthropic was saying they didn't give us any chance to fix it. They just told us to pull the plug. We'll figure out at some point.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll never know, but maybe we will figure out the details. But essentially, they had a short time frame to either shut it down or shut it down for all non-US citizens, which they couldn't do. So they just had to pull the plug on the whole thing, saying it was a national security threat. So according to Theo, the Wall Street Journal reported that Amazon reported the jailbreaks to the Department of Commerce, who then instituted the ban. So there's a little bit more information kind of leading to, that Amazon, among others, were kind of the whistleblowers or the snitches. And David Sachs had a good post, which, his take, which I thought was pretty good, and is kind of funny that, Dario had been promoting how much of a threat this model. This model was so great. It was going to take everyone's jobs. It was going to, have national security implications. Dario was calling for more government regulation.
Yeah.
Which, of course, more government regulation is good for Anthropic because there's only a few companies that could support all the things needed to actually build a model that would pass the regulation, right? It's going to be very expensive. So if you're not already in the game, you're not getting in the game unless you're very well funded. So there's always criticism that could have been the angle he was playing, or maybe that it really was that bad of a, that much of a risk. And it did need to be there's kind of two sides to that. But then it was also a little bit funny that then when the government did want to crack down, Dario apparently said no, threw his hands up and was a bit upset, as you can imagine, telling him that it had to be regulated, had to be pulled off. So I don't know, dude. What do you think?
That's because he didn't agree with the jailbreak that was proposed. He was on the side that those jailbreaks can already happen today with other models. So why is Fable getting targeted on this one? But I guess this is where self-interest comes in, right? I find it very interesting now. We're at the intersection of technology and politics, right? It's such an interesting place to be. And when you get into bureaucracy and politics, logic kind of goes out the window in some cases, and conspiracy starts. And I have many conspiracy theories now, but it's not just about tech anymore. That's kind of what we all need to realize too. There are other powers that be. There are people who run the world that we do not know, and it's not about technology in some cases. Could be that the congressman in Florida didn't get a chance to invest in this open round, and now he's pissed. Shit like that could happen when logic goes out the window.
Yeah, I don't
Yeah,
think there's a, and we will never know the full story because there's a lot of
yeah,
things that happen behind the scenes that most of us are not privy to, right?
yeah.
So Hawk Pocket Hero says, "For real, I was writing 15 bullet points of feedback per prompt, and it nailed it all every time." So some people were having some good luck with Fable for a moment in time. So this was too long to put in a slide, but I'll just maybe share the post itself because I think it's a good one. So this was not necessarily related to the Fable release and the pullback, unless it was. And I would speculate it kind of was.
It kind of was.
It was in response, in my opinion, and it's not that long of a post, really. So I'd recommend you read it because I think it's a different take, and I think it's kind of Microsoft's way to say they're kind of declaring war a bit on Anthropic, OpenAI, to try to create more of an ecosystem around this. Now, arguably, they could have been doing this the whole time, but instead they were investing in OpenAI, and trying to help in with compute at least on that end. But you do think I kind of get the sense after reading this that Microsoft is maybe not comfortable with Anthropic being the overlords in the AI race and wanting to make
Yeah,
sure that there's a good ecosystem, which I don't know if that means Microsoft helping other like open weight, open model companies, whether that's bringing their own models, trying to get into the game themselves. I don't exactly know, but I think it's basically it talks a lot about like not just like human capital, but companies owning their own token capital, which is like what are the things that you do as a company that is unique to your company and can provide value to growing your organizations, not just like the humans and the work they do, but also like the data that you have essentially becomes token capital for you to like use AI to improve your company, improve your operations, and improve the business.
this is the beauty of open source. What he's describing. I mean, before LLMs, we used to use base open source projects to build the business logic of our companies. And we didn't have LLMs to write that. We wrote it because it was some competitive advantage to the companies or the mission that we were on. Today, it feels a lot like the frontier is the tool that you use for everything. So you could be writing, you can be building some kind of business. You don't even care about your own logic. You're just wondering, oh, like I'm just going to use that managed agent thing, or I'm going to use this off the shelf, which is a closed source product to do your business, right? And that doesn't really make sense because the frontier is locked. It is closed, and you can't really take it as your own. Um, I mean, I thought this was a great article just for the fact that like everyone's trying to build these like software factories, which we'll get into another time. But to do a software factory, you need both human capital and token capital, and then you have to know what you want to build for your company.
Yeah.
And it's not just some shit that you pull off from Google Gemini managed agents. Like that's not where you're gonna get it from. You're gonna have to use your brain and build some stuff.
Yeah. And I thought this point was good, but the whole article is good, saying the last thing any of us want is a world where every company across every sector is ceding value to a few models that eat everything they see. Right. And it's this idea that if you just think about it, think of all the things that Anthropic has been trying to eat a lot, and and they're still hungry, right? And so I think it is a challenge that the model companies are great. They don't want to be, relegated to just being a utility like electricity. They want to now be, the electricity and all the apps in the usage of the electricity as well. So
Yeah.
I
But
think
by
that's the challenge.
definition, they're not an ecosystem. There is no interplay with any of the shit that they do. So it's not an ecosystem. It's a kingdom of theirs, right? If this was a true ecosystem, you'd be able to interop with a bunch of different ecosystems, right? That's what open source is all about. But obviously, we're not talking about open source. We're talking about the kingdom, the Game of Thrones of this shit. So,
Yeah. And I guess to wrap this up, we still don't know what's going to happen with Fable. My suspicion is it's going to come back at some point. whether it's going to come back to everybody or just US citizens is going to be an interesting thing to see. I think, whether I guess, what are the options? They have everyone upload their ID to verify you're a
Delete
US
KYC.
citizen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's like some kind of validation, but that's super unfortunate for those that do want the capabilities of just using it to build software and to do what we do every day. So I think this story is not done. I imagine we'll be talking about this a lot throughout the week and next week, of course, on the show. Yeah, it's a wild time. It's a wild timeline we live in.
One prediction I have is there are going to be a lot of smart people who are going to start working on to contribute to open models. And I think the want and desire to have an open model as capable as Opus has always been the goal, but now it is a burning desire. And I will foresee that becoming true.
And I also see more and more people wanting to, and we have, we talk about like Open Router has some stuff, there's, I think, factories release some stuff. This idea of like routing to different models and not using, one for cost reasons, not routing to the most expensive model. Fable's so expensive that even if you wanted to use it some of the time, you don't want to use it for the go check the weather for me requests, right? So it's routing to different models. They might not all be Anthropic. Maybe you do need Fable for some really, intelligence requiring tasks that you need the most sophisticated frontier model. But maybe there's 95% of it that you can route to a Kimi or a Quen or a GLM, and it can be much cheaper, or DeepSeek. And I suspect that the logic around the model routing is going to continue to evolve as people realize they don't need to use the best model for every task.
Yeah, dude, your customer support chatbot does not need Fable, okay? Just
Yeah.
letting you know.
Exactly. All right, let's talk a little bit about Apple at WWDC. So this is a post talking about Siri as an AI harness and architecture. So apparently you can, use Siri as a harness. Everything's a harness these days.
Everything's a fucking harness.
So you can watch this if this is Max Wenbach. If you
Bro
want
needs
to,
some help on his diagramming skills. But
yeah,
other than that, it's chill.
it's kind of a messy diagram. But if you want to learn a little bit of how you can use Siri as a harness, WWDC, Apple tried to talk quite a bit about AI, as you'd expect. This is kind of one of the takeaways. Prasant Kumar says Apple quietly became a real AI dev option at WWDC. Free foundation models on private cloud compute for apps under 2 million downloads. So you can call Claude or Gemini through one Swift API. Multi-agent workflows built in, and it's open source this summer. So some announcements from Apple. If you've been, we've been kind of waiting to see if Apple's going to get in the game. They're at least making some strides. We'll see what lands. I am skeptical, but, but hopeful. I am a hopeful skeptic when it comes to Apple being at all in the AI game.
The demos I did see are make Siri not stupid. So it looks like Siri can actually potentially open up my calendar app when I ask it to. But beyond that.
And the wild thing is, I think if Apple could hit this, they still have the devices, right? I mean, they have the access. Everyone's using, not everyone, but 50% or whatever the numbers are, 40%, whatever. A large number of people have iPhones. And so you already have access to the users. You just got to eventually get it right before they churn. And I still have an iPhone. I'm sure a lot of you listening do. So they could still be in the game. They just have to get there. They kind of like, miss the starting whistle, So let's talk a little about open model and the Chinese labs. So Minimax M3, it's an open weight, has open weight models now on Hugging Face. It's 428 billion parameters, 23 billion activated params. So you can actually see the weights of this model. So I think it's been a bit since they released, but now the weights are open, which is good. We want to see these open model labs releasing their weights so you can you can actually run them and see them yourself. over the weekend, GLM 5.2 became available. So if you do look at it, it does benchmark very well.
Yep.
And it's not quite Opus level, but it's pretty close to Opus level in a lot of categories.
You don't even need Opus level for your day to day. Like, I would go use this today. If you're wondering, go use it. It's tight. I was using it today.
We had a lot of people on our team using GLM 5.1 for certain types of tasks and workloads. And so I imagine we're going to have a lot of those folks using 5.2 now and getting even better results. Kimi K2 Code High Speed is now available. So it's just a multimodal coding model. So just a lot faster. Rolling out to Kimi Code Beta. And you can see there's like a video showing how much faster it is, which I do think that was the thing I noticed most about Fable is how slow it was.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I know roughly what I want it to do. I don't want you to go write 100 files. I want you to write the 10 files I need and do it as fast as possible. And so I do think that there's going to be this, two different types of workloads where it's one, you're going to send off a task and let it go for hours and you don't really care. You're going to come in, check in, and hope it's all done because you provided enough of a good enough plan. But we all know that sometimes that's not true. You might have missed something. So if you want to be on the loop, I think that these open models, especially as they get faster, are going to be real opportunities for folks to like still ride the loop, tell people or tell your agent what it needs to do, steer it as you go, and really guide it, and you can get there faster potentially than just letting it go. So I think there might be two different workloads depending on what the task is, but I could see myself wanting to gravitate towards these faster models for a lot of things rather than just like set it and forget it.
Yeah, and the open models are trying to become faster because their infrastructure is not as good as America in most cases, unless you're using like Fireworks or something, or Ollie Cloud. But if you're like buying coding plans from these people directly, you'll notice that they're a lot slower. And that's like the biggest feedback that they're getting is they need to make their infrastructure better. But imagine if it is fast as hell.
Imagine all the gains imagine all the gains they're doing to make it work on worse GPUs, right?
Yeah.
And then now they do get access, or you can get it on a plan that does have access to better GPUs. It could be even faster.
Here, I have one last question to pose on this. And maybe I could pose this to the audience too. A good gaming PC, and we were talking about this at the bar the other day, remember? A good gaming PC is $2,700, cheaper than your MacBook, right? And you can run open source Quen on there, which is probably as good as Sonnet 3.5, right? So would you do that and never have to pay for tokens? And imagine those open models get better just enough that you can run on this $2,700 gaming PC. Dude, I would run a freaking coffee shop with that computer. Like you could do a lot of stuff with that. You don't have to pay for tokens. So food for thought.
I do think that there will be more local inference, especially if you think of like a daily personal assistant type thing. Sonnet 3.5 level is perfectly fine. Yeah. So as they get smaller, as it can run on your own hardware, of course, some people will care about the privacy reasons as well, which are important. But I think even just the cost reasons of never having to pay for anything else, I could see many people making that decision. Which the only way to keep people from doing that is things like Fable that push the frontier, and then it keeps people hooked on like they'll pay more because there's always this segment of people that will pay a lot of money to be on the bleeding edge, and Fable was that. So this is from, I'm not going to try to pronounce it, but if on YouTube comment says, to me, Fable was way faster at larger, more complex stuff because it wouldn't make silly decisions that it would later get stuck on. Like any task would take 2+ hours, Fable felt slow but steady. Cohere announced that it has its first open source coding model, North Mini Code, small and efficient, designed for agentic performance and built for community input. So this was released. So Cohere's getting into launching. They have a bunch of like embedding models, right? And
Yep.
now they're launching a coding model. So I didn't really see how it benchmarked out, but I think it's more of a smaller. I wonder if it's only 30 billion parameters, so it's really meant to be able to probably run on your own devices. This was kind of an interesting, something I wasn't expecting, but the AMD CEO basically launched a $1,500 device. So it was a one hand. It can run a $235 billion parameter model live, no data center, no cloud, and it was running AMD's an AMD GPU chip,
Which is tight.
which is good because would love to see some competition for NVIDIA. Would love to see devices like this. Like, you don't even need a full big gaming PC if you had a laptop sized device that you could just grab. It's going to be like a Mac Mini, right? Mac
Yep.
Mini size that you could just sit at home and have run local inference. I still I think we'll see more of that. I just am curious. Do you remember like how many of us had like Raspberry Pis or Arduinos and shit, Like I did,
Yeah.
of course. Like I'm a tinkerer. I think a lot of people did. But like my mom didn't. Right? And so I
Yeah.
do, like the local business down the street definitely isn't running their own server, It's just like
No.
easier to pay a cloud provider. So I do want to know like what's the split going to be? Like how many
Yeah. But
how many
hey,
people-
they're not
people-
running their own ATS or they're running those iPads and stuff. They're not running their own billing systems anymore either.
Yeah.
And if they're willing, and there was a time where they weren't willing to take the iPads, and now they do. So Clover and all this other stuff.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. They have all those like POS systems, right? That you can just buy and use.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my question though. They're willing to just pay for that because they don't want to deal with running something themselves.
Yeah.
You think they want to buy? They're not going to be technical enough, even if they make it really easy to buy and deploy a device. So you're either going to have a bunch of people, which this existed actually, is a good analogy. Like the POS, there were companies that would go in and just like sell POS systems or set up like custom POS systems for businesses. So maybe there'll be that segment of group that try to go into these businesses and say, here, you can run all your business operations on this agent that runs locally. And then you're going to have the Claudes of the world that are going to say, just get Cowork, dude. You just get Cowork. It solves all your business problems. Hook up all your systems. Give us all your data, and you'll be fine. So we'll see. I think that there'll be a split. My speculation is very few people are going to run on device models unless Anthropic runs away with it and keeps making it so expensive. But I think there'll be enough other competition that OpenAI and others will give you reasonable options to just pay a cloud provider.
The POS analogy is good because in the beginning you'd have to pay for those iPads and stuff, and now over time they just give it to you for free. You get all the hardware for free, and then you pay it back through your charges or whatever. So we could see that happen again.
Yeah, and another release, Diffusion Gemma, was released. Again, this is all around just getting devices, local devices able to run these models. So Diffusion Gemma is interesting. And so I wanted to jot a few notes down because it's a different kind of model. So you don't need to be an LLM expert, but hopefully this will kind of tell you a little bit about how it works. So it's really built to run locally. So a normal LLM tries to write like next token completion, right? But Diffusion Gemma is a little bit of a different architecture. So it starts with like a noisy block of tokens and refines them all in parallel. So it's almost like diffusion, like if you remember Stable Diffusion or image models, where it kind of like fuzzy fade in. It tries to do that for text. So you get more tokens per second rather than waiting like each individual token to go, because it kind of just like diffuses the text in. And so it runs on Gemma 4's 26B mixture of experts, quantized. It fits in the 18 gigabytes of VRAM, so you can run on consumer hardware. but the speed win is kind of local single user use, which makes sense if you're running like a local device model. But super cool to see that people are exploring different architectures to get local on-device speed. And you can see like there's even more. You can run Gemma 4 on just 6 gigabytes of RAM. So there's a ton of like just people talking about these local on-device models that you can run. And Gemma's a big popular model for being able to do that.
My prediction is Gemma will be available on Samsung phones next year.
It's a bold prediction. I mean, it would make sense, right? We just talked about Siri, and Siri, allows you to use different models. But imagine with Android, you could just use Gemma directly on the device. That would be pretty wild. You don't need, the cloud provider. You can just run your basic chatbot functions right there on the device. OpenRouter came out a couple days ago and said they're introducing Fusion API, the smartest compound model in the market. So Fusion achieves Fable level intelligence at half the price. So you can see that essentially what it does, and it talks about if in the article how it works. But essentially it is like a bunch of models. It'll like route depending on the type of task. So by routing to different models based on the task, it can actually achieve better performance overall and they said they benchmarked it on 100 hard research tasks. So this was not necessarily on coding tasks. So keep that in mind. It was hard research tasks. So maybe doing like PR reviews or other things might still be really good for, not necessarily saying it's going to be best for writing code. I don't see any like SWE-bench, type results.
It's for deep search, yeah.
Yeah, so it's much more for deep search. But I do think this idea is interesting, right? We saw Factory Droid do this and say they saved a bunch on costs. This saying it's like better performance or Fable level intelligence at half the price. So it's this idea that if you know the different models and what they're good for and where they actually excel, you could route between them depending on the level of complexity of the task. So you only pay for the Fable intelligence when you really need it.
Yeah. Like it fans out to different models for the task, then it has a synthesized step, which takes the outputs of those and then runs it through another model to give you a result. The theory being that you don't need, for all those deep research tasks, not all of them require heavy reasoning, right? Some could just be tool calls for looking up web content and stuff.
We talked about how Mastra has support for this. Vercel also has support for being able to, so AI SDK now supports agent harnesses like Claude Code, Codex, and Pi with sandbox sessions in AI SDK compatible streams. I think it's just more of a trend around, similar to what OpenRouter is doing, but this is more on the framework level. It's this idea that it's not just one model or one harness. You actually want to be able to pick the model or pick the harness for the types of tasks. Maybe you want to send it to both, to Codex and Claude Code, and then have some kind of judge that decides which one's better, right? There's all these things that you want to be able to do. Or if, Claude decides that, your use of Fable isn't in their terms of service or isn't great in what they want you to do, you could swap more easily. So I think it's this idea of you want to control your own harness, control your own destiny, so to speak. You don't want to be completely reliant on just one model provider. And we're seeing that, with Vercel doing it. That's why we at Mastra wanted to do it as well.
We did it first.
Yeah,
Just
just to be clear, we launched this thing and
weeks ago.
And not in a canary, It's like it's in Maine. It's been in Maine for 2 weeks, so but welcome to the game, Vercel. So we talked a bit about a couple of weeks ago a lot about loop engineering. And so Swix has been talking quite a bit about loopcraft, which is, his version of loop engineering, right? It's the same, different words for the same thing. And then Swix says, one might argue the entire game of the next century is to be able to stack loops as effectively as possible. In the early days of each phase, it will be valuable to know when to go down a loop when things go wrong. And then I'll continue reading here in just a second. But it will probably be more valuable to know how to go up a loop as models improve for leverage. If you don't figure out how to do this, don't be salty when you lose to those that do. What do you think?
Cool story, bro. That's what all I have to say. Cool story, bro.
Yeah, I think, yeah. Okay. I think loop engineering is just AI engineering. I think we all have to evolve as you use these different models to do what they do best. I think everyone's going to find tips and tricks. I think a lot of people will codify those into tools over time. But I do think it's important to learn how to work with different types of models. So I think that's true.
Mhm.
You know,
I feel like everything's so doomery right now. It's like if you don't do it, you're gonna die or some shit.
yeah,
Like,
you're gonna
come
lose your
on, bro.
job. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah, like,
I
forget
think
about
just
it, man.
I think this is not any different than at any time alive. If you're the accountant that didn't learn to use Excel, yeah, like you're going to be in a bad place. But if you just evolve with the tools, you stay curious, you experiment a little bit, I think you're going to be just fine. So this is from Ben Burtonshaw. Excited to be opening up OpenEnv to the whole community. It will now be owned by Hugging Face. And the reason is the Frontier Labs train the model and the harness together, so the model is fitted to its harness. Open source can't do that, so open environment is a socket, tries to be a socket between all that. I also, I'm gonna be honest, I don't agree that because they train the models and the harness together, it's better. Actually, if you look at benchmarks, Claude Code is worse than other harnesses using Claude behind the scenes as the model. Not in every benchmark, but just that it's true on some benchmarks shows that the harness does not always win. So
Yeah, I
I
would
kind of
agree.
disagree with the premise, but I do like the idea of trying to, kind of improve the connection between the like open harnesses and models. I think that's a good idea. We'll see how it actually turns out. There's a lot been going on around self-improvement. So this is just another one of those self-improvement companies. There's a lot of them. This is Adeline 2.0. Adeline turns traces into behaviors. Behaviors surface issues. Issues become auto-generated evals and data. Adeline then generates new agent candidates and tests them. You review the winners and ship. We're going to see a lot more of this. So
Yeah.
agent learning is going to be this, second half of 2026. I think you're going to hear about it every week. There's going to be a bunch of different startups. It's going to be like observability was. Observability
Yep.
companies were.
Big eval.
Yeah, big eval a year and a half ago ish, when everyone seemed like they were starting an observability company. There will be some winners. We will see who wins, but I think you're going to hear a lot more about this, and we've talked about it quite a bit.
We're also gonna hear like if you're not doing agent learning, you're gonna be left behind. Just want to let you guys know.
Yeah, be prepared. Yeah,
It all
yeah.
starts with one loop, but if you don't get to the end, you're just not gonna make it, bro.
If you're building your agent by hand and it's not learning on its own, you're not going to make it.
You're not gonna make it, man. Just not gonna make it.
Yeah. So be prepared. It's coming. Well, I'm sure if you look hard enough, you're already going to start to see it. But
Yeah.
you will see a lot about agent learning, and I do think like having observability on your agents, there's going to be some cool things it unlocks. But I think we're very far from. You're going to see a lot of really. Here's my prediction: you're going to see a lot of really good demos.
Yeah, for sure.
And
There's already so many coming out that are
yeah,
pretty
and then
tight,
in
too.
6 months, people actually figure out how to make it work.
Yeah.
But like the demos are going to be prepared, everybody. The demos are going to be sick.
Yeah.
And then you're going to
if
try
it's
it
really,
out.
And if it's really hard, we're gonna get a bunch of people saying that you do not need agent learning.
Yeah, which is why I like the evals. The evals are really hard to write, and it's like, oh, you don't need evals. All the
Yeah.
best model companies don't use evals. And then the evals got a little easier, and more people are using evals now. It'll be this. It's the same thing. We're living in our own loop.
Yep.
It's just a little bit different topic. Speaking of evals, and does AI code actually help? So introducing Frontier Code, this is from Cognition, a coding eval that raises the bar for difficulty and quality. Each task took 40 plus hours of work by leading open source maintainers. So you can see like the score is very low, which again on these benchmarks, I do like to see benchmarks where people score really poorly on more closely related to real world tasks, because that means the model companies haven't saturated the benchmark yet, and they eventually will. But I think it's just good that we have different types of tasks. I saw some people, as you always do, hating on this benchmark, and there's one by Ramp as well. But I do think just having more benchmarks is a good thing to have, because it allows you to do some comparison across benchmarks. So Ramp Labs said on June 12th, today we're releasing Ramp SweBench, a private production grounded coding benchmark created from real engineering problems we faced at Ramp. And they have some some graphs about where the intelligence. I'll share this because I think it's actually kind of an interesting diagram here. But you can see like the cost versus score on different models in the curve, showing that Fable 5 had the biggest range. I did like that they kind of provided ranges.
Yeah.
But it was extremely expensive, right? The cost average was almost not quite like over double the price of Opus 4.8. But I also found it interesting that Opus 4.7 outperformed 4.8, because that's not been my experience. But
These aren't financial tasks, right?
it's real world engineering tasks that they faced, which are probably skewed a bit more towards like financial, but they're supposed to be actual engineering tasks, not like finance questions. But I do imagine, like, they don't share their benchmark, so I imagine it was actual problems and PRs that they shipped, would be my guess, and that they fixed, and so it probably measured that. So they're probably a bit skewed towards like financial engineering. But again, good to see more benchmarks. We'll see. It'll be interesting to see like which ones of these get maintained long term and which ones get like keep coming up. I thought this was kind of funny, so I just included it here. This is like, it's funny enough that it kind of comes full circle. So AWS had this tweet last week that said, more AI generated code doesn't make your team faster. It might actually slow you down. And this is on the AWS Cloud X account. And then if you do read the thread, they're like promoting a workshop on, I don't know, but it was just a bold, like eye-catching headline. You read the fine print and they step it back a little bit. But it's funny that AWS is telling you to use less tokens, and then AWS snitched on Anthropic and got Fable removed. So
it may slow you down.
Amazon
It may slow you down. You know what's really going to slow you down? When we snitch on it.
Yeah, when we report to the government that, oh, we definitely was jailbroken and it's dangerous. It's really dangerous, and then it gets pulled for everybody. So, it's a Game of Thrones. Everyone's playing it. Everyone's trying, and I don't think these are actually connected, but it kind of connects in a funny way. So, wanted to include it here. Let's talk a little bit about some things. We mentioned this last week that this was coming, right? I think it's kind of was officially, unofficially leaked, right? OpenAI is going to be going public. They submitted a confidential S1. OpenAI also reached an agreement to acquire Ona HQ. So basically, it's secure cloud execution technology will help Codex take on longer running work. So it's basically like better cloud run agents, right? So that's why they bought Ona. This was kind of a very interesting thing. So Salesforce acquired Fin AI, which was actually Intercom. So for those of you that have been around for a while, Intercom was very popular, and then they created the agent around Intercom and called it Fin. And it's a $3.6 billion acquisition. So that's pretty wild. It's a big...
Congrats to them.
Yeah, congrats to the team. Intercom has been around for a long time. So
yeah.
So I guess it tells you 15 years ago. And they changed their name to cap the transformation, right? So it went from Intercom to Fin, and now they're going to be part of Salesforce. And yeah, just another angle from it, from the Fin Twitter account. So Bloomberg has announced that French startup Mistral is in talks to raise 3 billion at so 3 billion euros, 3.5 billion US dollars at a valuation of roughly 20 billion euros. So Mistral's trying to stay in the game. I saw a
Yeah,
bunch of
and
memes come out after this around like, oh, Mistral announced a new model and it was fake, and EU is going to pull the model. It reported that they're going to pull the model for security reasons, but it was all just memes of just
yeah,
a bit poking fun that Mistral's felt like Mistral reminds me of like Llama
yeah.
in a way, right? It's slightly more relevant version of Llama. I hope this allows them to stay in the game. It would be great to see. I think you had a post that was kind of funny related to model providers in the EU.
Oh yeah, I said.
What
it,
what was it?
let me pull it up. I'll pull it up, and I also have some info about Mistral too. Give me 1 second.
Yeah, because you are in, and we didn't mention this at the beginning of the show, you're in Paris right now.
I am in Mistral's hometown right now.
Yeah, you are in France, so if
Yeah.
if you're a really big fan of Mistral, don't find it, Abi, please leave him alone.
All right, so I thought this was a good one. So USA has Claude, USA has ChatGPT, USA has Gemini, USA has Grok, China has Qwen, China has DeepSeek, China has Kimi, China has Minimax, and Europe has, and I said no chance, because that's how it is. I'm here in Paris this week for Viva Tech, which runs Wednesday to Saturday. It's pretty much this, I think, one of the biggest conferences, AI tech conferences here in Europe. Mistral will be there, AWS, a bunch of the startups around here in Paris will be there. There is this funny thing that's going on, which is so Mistral, there's all this like speak here, like on the ground, about Mistral's new model. It's called Le Chaton Fat, or Le Chaton. It's just like some fat cat. And it has like 200 trillion parameter model. It has the best benchmarks, etc. It's called Le Chaton Fat, which means the fat cat. And
Is it real or is it a joke?
I've been trying to discern if it's real or not. This happened directly after, and let me show you this little page here. People are joking around about it. Here you go. So Le Chaton Fat. Now this is not a real picture. At least I don't think it is. People are joking about it though. 30 trillion total parameters, million context window. It destroys all the models, etc. And people are joking that the government is going to have them shut it off as well. And this was announced yesterday.
Yeah, I think it's
kind of blew up. It's totally fake, I think.
I'm pretty sure it's fake. It has to be.
Yeah, like that was a joke yesterday. We were talking to some people here. They're like, "Oh, you're American, right?" I was like, "Yeah." Have you heard of Le Chaton Fat? I was like, "What the fuck are you talking about?"
And now imagine that they actually did have a model they were going to release, and it was nowhere near as good as that. What a letdown! Yeah. And so I feel bad for Mistral. I would love to see someone a model lab out of the EU that's at least competitive. I think Mistral's the only one that has a chance, but they're way behind. So hopefully it's real.
We're trying to meme it into existence.
Yeah, hopefully it is real. I would be very surprised. It's got to be fake. All right, let's continue on. We're almost done here. We're about ready to wrap up. There's a few more things to talk about. Dario published a new essay, Policy on the AI Exponential. This was before the government shut him down. If you want to read an essay that if anytime I read anything from Dario, it's like doom and destruction and kind of depressing. So, but you got to take him somewhat seriously. He's obviously leading the direction on one of the best lab, at least as far as like intelligence wise. So let's go through a bunch of quick hits. This is the speed round. Gemini 3.4 Flash Live Translate, our real-time speech translation model, which now supports over 70 languages and is so natural. It's available in the Gemini API, AI Studio, and Google Translate right now. And then we're going to end on this. I thought this was funny. Fable. A fable is a short, fictitious story designed to teach a moral lesson. Some would say it's not real. Some would say that it was a dream. Fable was a dream. Some of us experienced for a short period of time, and maybe we'll never have back. We'll see. And that's it. That's the show. If you are not already, go to YouTube, find Mastra-AI, go subscribe. You can follow Abi Iyer on X. You can follow me. I'm SM Thomas 3 on X. Follow Mastra on X as well. Yeah, dude. Anything else you want to close up on this week before we shut the lights off on this show?
I think the last thing I'll say is congrats to the New York Knicks for winning the NBA championship. And good luck and have fun, everybody.
All right. Keep looping.
Peace.
See ya.
Yo, that show's a wrap. We were live in the zone. AI agents out with Shane and Abby on the throne. Did you give us that review? Only if it's a 5. Jump on the tube, make sure to like and subscribe. Yeah, news so fresh, yeah, we keep you in the loop. Guests so fly, they bring the whole troop. AI on the rise, don't miss this power. Welcome to the show, it's AI Agents Hour. Did you just drop in? Is this your first time? Make sure to follow us on X and go like and subscribe. Yeah, learn the principles and patterns in our books. The Mastra.ai site, give it a look. Yeah, news so fresh, yeah, we keep you in the loop. Guests so fly, they bring the whole troop. AI on the rise, don't miss this power. Welcome to the show, it's AI Agents Hour. This is the end, we all wrapped up. Another showdown, another one coming up. AI Agents Hour's done, but the news doesn't cease. Shane and Abby, we out of here. Peace.